Welcome to Game All Night.
Well, hello and welcome to yet another Game All Night. I am your host, Chris Whiphant, soon to be joined by Mr. Dan Hughes. But right now, I am currently joined by Dan, who has me with a mystery beer that's kind of aromatic is a pleasant way to say this, Dan?
I think that's certainly the goal here. So what we've got here today is a beer from Sweetwater Brewing out of Georgia. Atlanta, GA, and what they've gotten, they've taken one of their well-balanced IPAs, a tasty IPA, and Sweetwater has always embraced their brand being built around appreciation for cannabis, and that's always been sort of the Sweetwater name itself is sort of themed around that. So in this case, they put their scientists in the lab and worked hard to try to reproduce the an aroma here. They were going for a specific marijuana strain, the G13 strain. And if you go ahead and swirl that around and take a big heady nose of...
I'm not going to get the munchies after this.
I promise nothing because I think they hit the mark and managed to create an aromatic experience here.
Well, given my past, I am going to have to take your word for it, Dan, because, there's all that.
You're a clean cut man.
I am a very clean cut individual. I promote drinking, but not necessarily the other thing. But anyway, we also have in our studio-ish, joining us from clear across the pond, I have Mr. Dan Hughes.
Hello. I've got no cannabis for you, unfortunately. I do have some heroin in the other room, but
well,
nice heroin beer.
Heroin beer. Is it a beer with Wonder Woman on it? Would that be what's going on?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, it makes you very sleepy. Let me put it that way. You go to sleep very quickly after very drowsy. Yeah.
I already have this need for some chips and some crisps, as it were.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
interesting. Are you drinking anything with us tonight, sir?
I am drinking something. I'm drinking a Saltaire Vibrant American Pale Ale. But Saltaire is a town in Yorkshire, where I'm from. So I don't know why it's pale ale, but anyway, I don't know much about beer. I must admit, it all just kind of goes down the same way for me, I'm afraid.
All right, but we have to ask you're the first person who's actually been enjoying a beer from across the pond, and I got to know where you stand on the. Matthew had tea. Okay, that kind of
yes.
He
only had tea because he thinks it's British. He's playing it all up. He's only got one USP, being miserable, and he's trying to get being miserable and being English.
He didn't put any cream in it, so I don't know how English it was, but
you don't have cream in tea. Milk.
No?
Milk.
Oh, milk,
tea,
just milk.
Cream.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so is the warm beer a thing, or is it just poorly cleaned wines?
I prefer cold beer. I prefer cold beer that kind of almost hurts when you drink it.
Okay.
But warm beer sort of is a thing. It's more just below room temperature beer. It's beer that's kept in cellars, but no further refrigeration than that. That's the traditional way of serving a British beer. But these days, it's a lot more common to get cold beers, which I'm in favour of because I don't like warm beer either, to be honest.
I agree. It's why, whenever I go out, they'll offer us very large beers, and I'm like, no, I just want a pint because it'll take too long to drink the 22 ounce, and it'll be warm. It's not good.
And it'll go flat, and it's horrible. Yeah, I agree.
Now, do you think that
Whereas one, Chris?
So let's kind of let's try out some history of beer here. Do you think we all know that India Pale Ale came about from beer survived the trip to India and back, and they added the hops to help make it last longer. So do you think this is where the warm pint of bitter kind of came out of? Is the same kind of necessity, as it were?
No, I think it came out of the lack of refrigeration in the days when they were serving beer and just keeping it in the cellar, basically.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I think it is. I've got absolutely no evidence to back that up. I could tell you something. In fact, I should have made something up about that, shouldn't I? It's about Queen Victoria doing an edict that all beer cannot be above this temperature. And then you could go around all your friends and tell them all this very convincingly and make a complete fool of yourself.
Well, I do that anyway. I don't necessarily need help, but
no. Well, I would imagine so. Yes.
So outstanding. So we've kind of been going around back and forth. You are kind of hard to get a hold of between your schedule and you say you don't like to do things, but you're always busy. It seems.
I am. I don't say like that. Yeah, I am busy. I'm a busy man. I'm a very important man. I'm a titan.
Exactly.
Some might call me a titan of board game media. Many people have described me as.
Indeed.
Mainly me. But
Eric Lang is going to make a mini of you yet, I'm sure. It'll be in Cyclades,
Yeah, well, I've decided instead of people making a mini of me, I've decided to come the other way and kind of grow my beard out and have a kind of so I can claim all dwarves minis of me. That's my ultimate aim.
That's fair.
Yeah.
A laudable goal and heartily endorsed from at least one half of the Game All Night crew.
That's the half that can grow a beard. The other half is Irish and can't. Or more Welsh. Sorry to my heritage.
Well, no, there'll be Welsh in me. Hughes is a Welsh name, so there'll be Welsh down the line somewhere.
It infected at some point, right?
So. Yeah. Well, no, you say, yeah, I won't go into my heritage because it's not, but I'm actually Australian, so I'm sort of not British, but I am. But anyway, well, go on. Carry on.
So the prisoner who got furloughed that's basically where I'm going with this.
Yeah. There's a long line of criminals in my past. Certainly on my mother's side, that she's done all the investigations, lots of sheep thieves and stuff, all that kind of. So you just be glad you haven't got a sheep with you today because I'll have it. It's in my genetics. I can't help it. If there was a sheep there, Chris, I'd be stealing it right now.
I believe that. Although now all of a sudden I cannot get Wallace and Gromit out of my head because you're just kind of the penguin.
Well, that's a similar accent to the one I've got.
It's very
my sheep proclivities is what's got me banned from playing Catan as well. I'm no longer allowed to play Catan because I just steal all the sheep from the table. It's just genetic. In fact, Catan is actually banned in Australia because of all the sheep thieves there. So.
It's just
true as well. You can tell that to all your friends as well. That's true.
Absolutely. I'm surprised it's not in the Board Game Geek Wikipedia page by now. Actually,
no.
When I get Mr. Ian O'Toole on someday, I'll have to ask him about the sheep thievery, as it were.
You should get Ian O'Toole on. He's an interesting man.
Yeah. Again, you think it's hard trying to get scheduled across the pond? I'm sure you can imagine trying to get tomorrow scheduled.
Well, why don't you try scheduling someone in America, Australia, and Europe at the same time? Now,
it's very timey-wimey. No.
It's very timey-wimey.
Yeah, because you did. You had you did have somebody.
We had Ian O'Toole on, yeah.
Right.
Sorry?
You did.
Yeah, we had Ian O'Toole on Sporadically Bored, my podcast, Sporadically Bored. We had him on there, and he was very interesting and talked about his new version of Glory to Rome.
Yes.
He didn't really.
Coming soon to Kickstarter. Not.
Coming soon to Kickstarter. That's not true. It's not really. He talked about his own private version of Glory to Rome, his design, which we won't ever see released. But it is tricky. But Ian's a consummate professional and also is very used to having to have meetings with people in Europe and America. So he's willing to get up at foolish times in the morning. I actually do another podcast called The Lee and Dan Show, where I podcast with an Australian. But that's not about board games. So
no. Well, one would argue Sporadically Bored is only periodically about board games, actually.
Tenuously about board games.
It's in the name, but that's about it. I mean...
Yeah. And we talk... An average of 2 to 3 minutes every hour and a half is what we're aiming for, talking about board games. And usually it's about me saying all board games are rubbish and stop buying them. You fools.
Stop buying them. You already have too many. You don't need any more.
Yeah, well, I don't know about you, Chris, but I've reached that point of a board gaming career where the new releases aren't really that appealing to me anymore, because I've got loads.
Right.
I've got loads. I don't need any more. And so because I've reached that point, and because I'm inherently a very grumpy man, I believe everyone else should have reached that point as well. So basically, once I start losing interest in something, I believe that everyone else should lose interest in the rampant consumerism of board gaming. And so I get very annoyed and angry when people don't do exactly what I tell them to.
No, you're as well. You should. I mean, that's what grumpy old men do.
Well, I think so.
You know, you go watch that Clint Eastwood movie. That's exactly what you go do, right? But
I draw the line at comparing myself to Clint Eastwood.
Yeah, not many people can pull that off.
No, and I'm one of the few.
Well, you did go from doing, this game is broken, and you decided to leave that to start your own thing, plural, because it ended up being things, right? Not necessarily in that order.
I didn't decide to leave it to go and do other things. I decided to leave it, and then I started other things.
Right.
I should probably, for diplomatic reasons, I should make that clear. I've always, all my life, I've flitted from project to project, and I'm very good at starting things.
Right.
And I am very good at having ideas. I personally think I'm very good at having ideas and starting things and new projects and things like that. Get very excited, get very enthusiastic, and get very obsessed with starting things. And then once they're entering the maintenance phase, I start getting bored and wanting to move on. And this kind of isn't my first rodeo into social media and content creation and things like that. I've been doing content creation for a long time, for at least 12, 14 years, initially through blogging and podcasting, and I've tried a bit of everything, and it's never been something that upsets me when I stop, if that makes any sense. Because it's all false. I mean, I very much enjoy interacting with the community and things like that.
Sure.
And I very much enjoy the kind of developing a tight-knit community. And I've got a lot of friends that I've made when I was blogging and podcasting 12 years ago.
Right.
But once you stop, no one cares. People like to think they would. And I'm sure all these big podcasters and things like, I won't name any names, but the big podcasters will all love to think that people care and miss them and things like that. But someone just comes and fills the gap, and then you just yesterday's news.
Yeah, you just go on a hunt for a new podcast. The next thing you know,
exactly,
the podcast reader's full again, and life goes on.
Exactly. Whatever you're doing is not as important to anyone else as it is to you,
Sure.
and so it's vital that you're enjoying everything you're doing. If that makes
right,
sense.
and if you're not, then obviously,
then what's the point?
Exactly. So
yeah.
Fast forward, and then I think if I were to read anything into it, is just that I would imagine that the preparation and the work that goes into doing that is immense, just given what we have to go through for our little show. So fast forward to Sporadically Bored, which you are notoriously unprepared for.
Absolutely no preparation, or yeah. And more than that, I mean, Mike and I have kind of made a Faustian pact or whatever, that we're not in this to entertain the audience, and we're not in it to grow an audience, and we're not in it to become big board game media celebs, because I don't believe there is such a thing. But, we don't want to be known names. We don't want to do anything like that. We're only in it interested to chat to each other because we're friends, and mess about. Really, and have some kind of creative outlook, output, because I do try occasionally, when I get burnt out, I try occasionally to have a period. Right, I'm not going to do anything now. I'm just going to do what everyone else does and watch TV.
It doesn't work.
No, it doesn't work. I'm like, well, what can I do next? And
TV just gives you more ideas of other things to do. That's all it does.
Well, that's it. It just gives you a bit of a rest. Just start thinking, what? Like I've actually got a load of kind of projects that are in the back of my mind that I'd love to do about board gaming, and I'm never going to do. So one of my biggest things that I think would be amazing is kind of a development of. Sorry, I know I'm going all over the place here. I do apologise.
You're on point for the show. That's fine.
Okay, that's fine. It's a development of my letters from Huddesfield. I did for a while. I did these letters from Huddesfield. You did a letter from your hometown as well. Trying to persuade us to set their games in my hometown of Huddesfield. It's kind of a very light, a very kind of gently. Well, the aim was to be gently funny. Kind of poking fun at my hometown for being provincial and nondescript, but also kind of. Initially, it started off. I wasn't publicising I was doing this. I was just doing this for my own entertainment, for the entertainment of my board game group. So I was sending letters to Martin Wallace and Eric Lang and Stephen Bonacore, and just out of the blue, without them knowing who I was and without them knowing that this was for entertainment purposes, and just trying to persuade them to set these games in my hometown. And it was entertaining for a while. And then I made a few videos out of it. So now I can't really use that anymore because it's. I'm not saying it's well known, but you know what I mean. It's not a secret that this is a comedy shtick. Although you struggle not to realise it was a comedy.
I don't know. I think Americans don't necessarily get that nice, subtle, dry humor all the time. I think there's a lot of people are going, man, he's really stuck up about his town, and I'm like, oh no, it's really brilliant. I love it. I looked forward to them whenever they came out because it was always. I always loved how they were directed specifically, like how they could incorporate this game into this game that really had no sense having Huddesfield involved in it whatsoever.
No, exactly. I've got one left in the can, one left that's written and responded to that I haven't recorded. I don't know if I ever will, but I really should because it was to Matt Leacock about pandemic and setting a pandemic in Huddersfield because we got a big dog mess problems in the local parks. So it'll be about having to control the dog feces in the local parks, and instead of a medic, you could have a dog warden and all this kind of stuff. And Matt sent a fantastic letter back. I mean, that's the exciting thing about doing these letters is these people send letters back. I got a letter from Richard Garfield. Do you know what I mean? It's he does. You know, these are big names. I've actually got Richard Garfield's Hotmail address, and the fact he uses Hotmail is wonderful in itself.
His resume is up on GeoCities right now. So
yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's it. And I haven't actually used it, but my letter to him got forwarded to him, and then he responded to it via Hotmail. It's just fantastic. But anyway, so I've got another idea for a similar thing, although it couldn't be me, I don't think, doing it. But what I really wanted to do was a spoof live Q&A thing where someone's doing a board game media Q&A, and it just goes more and more chaotically wrong. So it starts off normal, like a Tom Vassell Q&A or Rado Q&A and things like that. And then the questions start becoming more and more bizarre, and the guy doing it starts having a breakdown in the middle of it. And you know, the building starts falling in, or, you know, people start... So someone nude wanders round the background and things like that. I just think it would be fantastic to be a completely unknown face and start this new rubbish review channel, you know, really badly done review channel. And I did think about getting some of my friends who are actors to do it, you know, scripting it and things like that. Yeah. And then I realised how much work it would be, so I decided against it. But there's definitely an idea in that somewhere. If you ever see that, just pretend you don't know it's false.
I won't tell a soul. I'll tell the 3 people that watch this episode, and that's about it.
So your numbers have gone up. That's good.
Yeah, they have. Yeah. Well, my mom unsubscribed, so it went down to 2, and then somebody else subscribed, so it's all right.
Yeah, that happens to us. Absolutely. No, but I'm all over the place. Basically, and I've made peace with that. And as you know, I've got a real job. I don't believe this ever will be a job, so I'll just do whatever I want to do and enjoy it. And as soon as it stops becoming enjoyable, I quit. And some people don't like that, but
well, you know what? It's like you can't necessarily do that with your job. Right? Because we need to make a living. We need to pay for our new house and new game room that we just built, and the shed that lives off in the hills somewhere that's blue or something. right? Like we need to pay for these things, so you can't
That's
do it
right.
with your job.
That's
so
right.
you have to control what you do with your free time. That's where we have control. It's nowhere else.
And this whole board game media thing, it just depends on whether you want to. A lot of people's dreams is to make this kind of thing their job, and I think that's a really quick way of ruining your hobby.
I would agree.
In my view, and I've never. I've talked about this a lot, so I won't go on about it here either as well. But I've never subscribed to this whole do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life, because I can see enough people working in board game media struggling because there's no money in it for a start, and but even if you're doing it full time, it's just such a grind, and you're basically losing a hobby. You're not gaining a profession.
Right.
You're losing a hobby.
Right. And that hobby.
So it's
that hobby kind of takes over into your friend groups and things, right? Because now you're kind of relying on them for plays or for help or for acting or whatever the case may be. I think there's very few people, like the shut up and sit down guys I feel are like the only guys in the business who have it right. Like, it seems like they're having fun. They're doing the part that they enjoy. They only do what they enjoy. It comes out when it comes out, unlike, everybody else who sets insane schedules and has to go through I couldn't imagine having to go through a Kickstarter fund drive and stuff. That's tough. That's got to be heart-wrenching.
Well, I mean, they do their fundraising stuff as well, don't they? But no, you're right. I've never thought that way. But they do seem to have it right. They do seem to not play games so much that they lose an interest in it, because they don't review tons and tons of games.
Nope.
I'm sure they play a few once and then say, no, we're not. They only review the games that they think they've got something valuable to say about, rather than I have to review all these review copies. And they're big enough that they can get review copies and not feel obligated to review them, because that's the thing that can be difficult. That's the kind of trap I got caught in with Dan and Cora, which is the other thing I do, which is a thing on the Dice Tower. Where I review copies of children's games with my youngest daughter. Now, generally, I used to buy them, but over the last 2 years, I don't get sent many, but I go to Essen and kind of tout for some. So I spend 2 days getting free copies of kids' games from Essen. And then there's this big obligation to actually do them. And if you can't be bothered doing something for a few weeks, you feel a bit guilty, because these people have given you money, basically. Or they've given you something of value in return for you reviewing them, and I kind of made an internal resolution not to accept any more review copies, because again I don't like that obligation and that feeling that I'm not doing it for just kicks, really. Right. I'm doing it for somebody else. People like to fool themselves that that board gaming is almost anti-consumerist, but I've never been involved in a hobby which is more focused on new things. People talk about replayability. No one replays the games. By the time the product's on the shelves, it's old news.
Yeah.
And Ignacy Trzewiczek wrote an article recently on Board Game Geek about how all these board games are only getting one printing these days. So they're only getting 1,000 copies, one printing, because as soon as it's hit the shelves, a week later, no one is interested, because it's next. And I think board game media has a lot to do with that. Not your show, because you're doing something different, and not things like This Game is Broken, and not things like 5 Games for Doomsday, Ben Maddox had on the show. His shows, because it's not focusing on that. But a lot of the shows are just pushing this consumerist agenda right down our throats. But now, whether that's because I've been in the hobby for 6-7 years and have reached a natural kind of falling off point or not, I don't know. It could be just me, not the industry, but it certainly feels like there's just such a pressure to buy things.
What's going to make you actually say, yeah, I think I'll spend 70 quid on that?
So it'd have to be substantially better than something I've got or new, but I no longer buy very often, just from never playing. I usually want to play somebody else's copy before I start even thinking about buying it. And then if I've played someone else's copy these days, I'm more kind of, Mike's got it, so why do I need it?
we don't need to own everything. I get tired of reading, learning, teaching to play it one time. That gets old.
Yeah.
You know.
That gets really old. Yeah.
Yeah. Especially
fact,
when you have
the
people who
games
don't want to learn. You know, they're just, they glaze over or do whatever, and it's not fun for them,
obviously.
obviously.
You find that happens quite a lot when you talk, actually, Chris.
Oh, you have no idea.
It's a good thing. Yeah.
Speaking of that, let's give all those people at home a little wake-up call. And we're going to pause for a quick break, you know, because I think a good pun is always a good way to wake people up. So we'll see what Patrick has in store for us this week, and I'll be right back after this.
Pontifications with Patrick Hillier.
Comic Sans walks into a bar. The bartender says, "We don't serve your type here."
Welcome back, friends and family, loved ones, and the 3 people left watching the show. I am still here with Mr. Dan Hughes, the self-proclaimed grumpiest man in podcasting, and
yes,
I think you live up to that, sir. I definitely.
Thank you. So you caught me on a bad day.
Oh, that means he's only half as grumpy.
No, I've had a very good day today.
Excellent. Modern medicine at work. It's fine.
Indeed.
Appreciate it. You know, I had Ben Maddox on. You were actually on an episode of 5 Games for Doomsday. And, you know...
I was.
One reason we haven't really gone into the whole mental health thing because, you know, A, I'd probably be on the sofa all afternoon if I did that. But B, it would really be a retread of excellent work that you did on that podcast because, you know, you and Ben really went into that. And I think if anybody wants to learn a little bit more about you, go get that show because that was really something special. That was great.
It was interesting because Ben's a very good interviewer. And I didn't know, obviously, I hadn't planned what I was going to say. But I've listened back to it a couple of hundred times because I'm a complete narcissist. I enjoyed talking about things I don't normally talk about in a public sphere, if that makes any sense. There's nothing special about anything I do. It you know, thousands and thousands of people do it. It just doesn't get talked about very often. It's not a job that many people talk about, isn't psychiatric nursing? And often we're seen as villains as well by the media. You know, it's a very easy thing to do. Is the one flew over the cuckoo's nest type portrayal of a psychiatric nurse, and certainly there have been, especially historically, some horrendous treatment of individuals within the mental health services, and still probably is. I mean, it's an area of work where even now, I mean, I've been in it for 15 years, and I look back 15 years ago and look at what we were doing, and I go, do you know what I mean? So, and you know that the stuff we're doing now will be looked upon as not barbaric, but as misguided in 30 years. Just like, you know, it's interesting because mental health is very much a social construct as much as anything else. And kind of what is very dictated about what society sees as normal. So, it's interesting. There's a lot of philosophical questions about normality that come around with, used to be, if you were homosexual, it used to be a mental illness. If you were a single mother, people got hospitalized for being single mothers back in the day. It'd be interesting to know in 30 years how we regard how we work now. And I suppose the job of all of us working in the field is to try and work out what we're doing is ethical and what isn't. Interesting, because as a mental health nurse, you are 80% and 20% police, and kind of protecting the public or dictating to people what they should and shouldn't be doing and things like that. And it's, whether you're getting that 20% right is where the real interest comes. The emphasis is on working in collaboration with patients instead of working for patients. And it's that switch in mentality that happened 20, 30 years ago that has been the real benefit of humanizing people with, it's not treating them as patients, but treating people as humans and not even humans, treating them as equals. And trying to reduce that power dynamic between the patient and the nurse. Because there is, unfortunately, always going to be a power dynamic between the patient and the nurse, because you're the one who's trying to persuade them to take the tablets. You're the one, if they're on a hospital ward, you're the one who's saying, right, I think it's time to go to bed now. You know what I mean? I and sometimes that is in people's best interests. But it's finding out when that's the best interest and ensuring that it really is in the best interest, not because it's easier for everyone all around if someone does something. There's lots of people in the community who are acting in ways that people wish they weren't.
Right.
But it's what the reasons you wish they weren't. Are you wishing they weren't because it's easier for you, or it will be better for them? And that's
right.
Yeah. Without
So,
going into specifics.
if you know an engineer and you play a game with an engineer, okay, like I know what this game is going to go like. I know what my teach is going to be like, and I know I have a long night ahead of me. So when you come into a game, being a nurse and having these things, do you bring any of that kind of knowledge and that kind of education to bear, or is it you are just trying to click that off? And
no, I don't think there's. You could argue I'm quite good at reading people's emotions, maybe, but only to a certain point. But most of the time, I'm not bothered. I try and avoid bringing my work into anything. I won't play anything set in an asylum. That makes me very angry. And I won't play anything. I won't play Mountains of Madness, for example, or something like that. A lot of Cthulhu stuff makes me very angry because I believe that that one of the last big kind of prejudices in the world is using mental illness as a horror trope. These, I get quite annoyed at it because people who are very right on about other situations, about cultural appropriation and about chainmail bikinis and things like that, which appropriately so. I'm not saying not appropriately so, but they'll be very glad to pretend they're a schizophrenic and go, ho, it's all funny and ooh, I'm loony and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, no, this isn't right at all. So that does annoy me, that kind of thing. So I won't play anything with there are games out there which I'm pretty sure if my manager saw me playing would be a disciplinary type hearing for me because of the negative connotations towards people with mental health. That are displayed in them. And Manchester Madness is a classic one. And also Time Stories. I hate that first one set in an asylum. It's just like, don't,
Right.
We gloss over the racism of H.P. Lovecraft, quite rightly so. So I think we should try and avoid all the madness stuff of it as well.
Now, do you think is that because the madness is kind of, it's an external source and it's not the fault of the person? Do you think there's any of that kind of plays into it? Or do you think it's really just the illness and how people are treated because of that and how it displays itself?
I just think it's using it's using real world distress of people who are incredibly tormented, and whose life you couldn't even imagine, whose life is a living horror movie, some of these people that I work with, and using that as an entertainment value, and laughing and joking about it. And granted, most people don't see that, or if they do see it, all they see is somebody shouting and screaming in the street, and they cross to the side of the road and are a little bit scared of them and walk away, whereas I'm the one sitting down with that person and chatting to them and finding out, what's going on and what they're scared of and why they're shouting and all that kind of stuff. And again, I said this in 5 Games for Doomsday. We all say, awareness of mental health. Oh, yes, we're very good at being aware of mental health. And we're all patting ourselves on the back for our attitude towards depression and anxiety and all that kind of things. But our attitude towards bipolar disorder, when people are elated and acting very bizarrely in the street, or our attitude to people who have got kind of psychotic symptoms, as in delusions or hallucinations and things like that, they still stink, absolutely stink. And there's no understanding towards those people. There's just fear and pointing and laughing within the context of board games. And I don't like it. Chris. Should stop.
That's definitely something, that is probably not on a lot of people's radar. Like, I don't think that...
No, I don't think it is.
And I
don't think anyone's bad. I don't think it's bad, And
they don't know somebody, so it doesn't relate, right? We tend to know people who we're fighting for, and we don't know anybody in this instance.
Yeah. But no one is bringing the issue of mental health into board gaming,
right?
And I'm not doing it either. I'm not all over Twitter. I'm not all over Twitter ranting about it. But I do think it is something that that is worth thinking about.
No, I agree.
So there you go, a bit of seriousness there.
We did.
I'd rather be talking about myself and how good I am, but we got sidetracked.
That's all right. I mean, I was going to talk about the 3D printer, and I was going to ask you like how many things you've kind of.
Can you see it there?
yeah. So how many ashtrays have you made?
Not many ashtrays. I don't think I've got much up here. I made this. It's a chicken. I made that and then I painted it. Yeah. It's a free-range chicken. But no, I'm fed up of the 3D printer now. I'm fed up of it. I've done all that. It's all gone. I'm fed up of it.
You printed the 3 things you wanted to, and you're good.
I did. I printed a dice tower. I printed some things for terraforming Mars and a load of stuff for Mythic Battles. And now I'm like, well, that was an expensive 160 quid's worth of equipment. Well, more than that with all the modifications I've done to it. But that thing's a very good example of my ephemeral nature. I got very passionate about it, very, very interested in it, very obsessed with it for about 2 months, and now it's probably going to go on eBay, to be honest.
You don't have to tell me because I completely understand, and as does my wife, or doesn't, as the case may be. So
yes.
So speaking of understanding, I think before we wrap up our show, I think I wanted to take a quick break and see if you can help me translate some English into English for me.
I certainly can.
Yeah? You think you can help me with that?
Yeah.
All right, outstanding. So we're going to be right back with Lost in Translation after this. Have you or a loved one been hurt in a board game accident, by a table, cut by a card, or worse? Have you suffered a DVT from sitting at a board game too long? Have you or someone you love lost fingers, appendages, or even life due to these games? Well, here at Meeple and Bits, we are the board game lawyers. No one understands board game law like we do. We will fight hard for your right. So be sure to contact us before you make any decision. You can reach us at 1-800-555-BITS. That's 1-800-555-BITZ. And remember to call us because we don't get paid unless you do. I teased it. We're doing little extra segments, Dan, and I am going to I'm gonna require your help here to try and educate the Americans on the proper use of English. How does that sound?
Yes.
All right.
That sounds good because I'm probably the world's leading authority on how to speak proper.
I think that's fair. I mean, I think only somebody who speaks Cockney would be slightly under you. I think, the nice Yorkshire drawl is much appropriate for what we want to accomplish here. So without further ado, let's get lost in translation. You use this word a lot.
I do use this word a lot.
So what exactly does pillock mean?
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? I couldn't really define it. A pillock is like an idiot, but not in the sense of intelligence. Probably in the sense of common sense, maybe.
Okay.
Just a fool, an idiot. It's generally a relatively affectionate way of saying something. You wouldn't call your worst enemy a pillock in order to really insult them or anything like that.
Right.
It'd be basically if someone dropped, a removal man dropped a box full of vases, you'd say, "Oh, you're pillock." So it's kind of that kind of a mild term of an insult.
But without we're not going on full on intelligence. You're not dumb. You're not stupid. You're just not quite there.
No, not quite there. I've got interesting stories. I don't know how long you want to go on this, but I've got an interesting story to tell about why pillock is so favoured in my mind. Well, basically, my father. The reason I'm Australian is because my mother's Australian, and my father met my mother in Australia.
Okay.
Because my father went round the world in a double-decker bus. And my uncle. So him and his friends. My father was a bit like me and he had projects, but him and his friends did the top deck of this double-decker London bus out as beds, and the bottom deck was living cooking quarters, all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
And they set off from England. They drove through England, got the boat over to France, drove through Europe, drove through Asia, got the boat to Australia, drove over Australia, met my mum, got the boat over to America, drove across America, back to England. Anyway, the reason that pillock is so favoured is because the name of the bus was Hairy Pillock. The bus was called the Hairy Pillock, and the reason it was called the Hairy Pillock is because during the fitting out of all the interior decorations and beds and cabinets and things, Hairy Pillock was the word most used as the group kind of insulted each other as they tried to make all this. So that's why Pillock is so high in my mind, because it's got a strong family history.
Like, so what is a punter? Like for us, that's somebody who kicks a football, right?
No, a punter. A punter is a customer, and he's often a customer of a prostitute as well.
Oh.
That's the kind of that's definitely the most common usage of the word punter. But punter is generally a customer.
Yeah. Well, we just call him John, so you know.
Yeah. I thought they were called Chris's, but that's just me.
No, that's something different. They have special needs. And a chock-a-block?
Chock-a-block, that is something that is full. If you have a large... The pillock who's dropped the large box of vases dropped it because it was chock-a-block with vases.
I have no idea where that came from, but it was the funniest word I found. I thought that was hysterical. Like, it's got to have something. Got to have some meaning. All right. So it's chock-a-block full of vases. All right.
Yeah.
So a chin wag?
That's that. I was gonna try and tell you that was an incredibly racist slur and you were gonna get in a lot of trouble. But no. A chin wag is a gossip.
I think I had that filter on.
A chin wag is a gossip. So if you are having a chin wag with somebody, you're having a good old chat, a good old gossip with somebody, a talk with them.
But a little nefarious at that, right? Not clean chat. All right.
No. Basically, an inconsequential chat, I would say. A good old chin. It's because you're wagging your chin, you're talking like this. Wagging your chin.
Excellent. Chuffed. I've heard you use this one many a time.
Really? Do I say chuffed?
I think you did.
It means pleased. It means pleased. So the punter, the punter of the removal company, who dropped which Pillock dropped the chock-a-block box full of vases, was actually secretly chuffed because their mother-in-law had bought them those vases and didn't like them. So
and you only knew this because the girls were doing the chin wagon in the cooler at the morning.
I forgot chin wag. Damn it! I was so proud of myself as well for that. Yeah.
That was excellent. Let's see where we go with the doddle.
A doddle is something that's very easy. Very easy. So the Pillock who dropped... Oh, God, that's going to get old, isn't it?
The spider who ate the fly who ate the...
Yeah, that's it, the old lady who swallowed the fly. The Pillock who dropped the vases. No, a doddle is something that's... A doddle is something very, very easy. You need
like
to get
that
someone
song.
to write that song for you, too. Yeah.
I think we need to write that. Need to call somebody about that one.
Yeah.
So it's not. I know it's not about fish. Like
No, it's not about fish. Now, one of them was chuffed. One of these punters was chuffed to bits that this vase, chock-a-block vase box, got dropped by the Pillock. However, the other one was gutted because they were. It means very upset.
Okay.
I'm gutted. I'm upset. I'm sad. Disappointed. Yeah.
Oh, that's sad. Because
it all went pear-shaped. It all went pear-shaped after...
It writes itself.
After the box, the chock-a-block, they all went pear-shaped, which means basically it all went wrong. It all went wrong. When he dropped this box of vases, it all went wrong.
It all went tits up.
It all went tits up, yeah. Smarmy. Do you not know what these are?
Honestly, like, not really.
Okay.
Like I have an idea what smarmy means, but I have a little Anglophile in me, so I know what a lot of these means. But I doubt a lot of our Midwest listener, I doubt he knows.
Smarmy would be somebody who is false, like a used car salesman. Is smarmy. The boss of the removal company, who assured them that these guys were professionals and not pillocks, was very smarmy.
I really want to see this flip book, Dan. Like I
am writing a children's book about this now.
And then I got to know what the heck what this means.
You perverts! I didn't know I was on that kind of show.
Oh, yes, you did. You knew coming in. But...
Give me a tinkle on the blower. Well, this is all about... I don't know. I'm just going to check my daughter's not listening to the room. No. A tinkle on the blower, that would be a tinkle. It's when you start thinking about these, you think, well, this doesn't really make any sense why it's called that.
No, it doesn't.
I certainly wouldn't say myself. It's a phone call, basically. A tinkle, I'm guessing, is the noise the bell rings as it ting-a-ling-a-ling on the blower. I don't know why it's called a blower, but a phone call. Give me a ring. Give me a phone call. To complain about the
which is
chock-a-block and chinwag and all that kind of stuff.
So that was a lot of fun. Thank you, Mr. Dan, for playing along.
No worries. Thank you.
That was it. That's it. That's all the words we got. So anyway,
that's all it is.
That's it. Believe it or not, that's 10. That's 10. But we made a whole story, which I think I want to see illustrated. I don't know that it needs to be colored. Maybe we can leave that for the kids. But
I could make a coloring book out of it.
I think there's definitely glass is so easy to color because literally you just kind of don't do anything to it, actually, right?
Glass. Are you talking about stained glass frieze of this story? I like it.
The vases, I was thinking more like when you have to paint the vases broken. That's.
I was thinking porcelain vases. You see this cultural gap.
Yeah, I mean you can have that. I mean we're cheap. We just buy cheap glass. That's all. Okay. We don't buy anything fancy. But I imagine yours would be a lot more hideous. Hence why somebody would be happy that they broke them, right?
Yes, that was my thinking.
All right.
And I can tell you're cheaper because just basically by what you're wearing. So that's good.
Absolutely.
Unlike me, sartorial elegance. Look at this. A hoodie and a shirt.
And a shirt.
Down with the kids and dress for business.
Exactly. It's the modern day mullet is really what it is. It's the business in front,
put my hood up,
party in the back. There you go.
I look like a youth. I look like a homeless person is what I look like.
Youths. Right, okay. All right. Well, Dan, this has been a lot of fun. I can't wait to have you back next week. We're going to play a quick game. But for the people at home, this is good night. So
this is it. That's all you've got.
This is it.
There's no refunds.
The tour de force that was this show. We went from, give me a tinkle on the dilly to, which I have a feeling means something else, all the way up to the full tour of mental health and the importance of why you should not play Mansions of Madness. So, in any event, if people want to hear more bandwidth of insanity and incongruity. I'm trying to use Ben Maddox words now, and I'm running out. I'm done.
Ones that no one else understands.
I'm done. I need to listen to a show with a dictionary. I swear to God. So, where would they try and find you if they want to do so, sir?
If they want to hear more from me, I've got 2 podcasts. One of which is theoretically about board games, and the other one is just open chaos, really. The one about board games I do with Mike Delisio, who's a former, quite recent guest on your show, and that's Sporadically Bored, and you can find that wherever you normally find podcasts. And then my other show is I do with an Australian chap. There's a bit more swearing in that one, but equal amounts of nonsense, and that's called the Lee and Dan Show, and that's on wherever you get your podcasts. Basically, I also do segments on the Dice Tower and Board Game Breakfast where I don't swear. I do it with my 6-year-old daughter Cora. So I do Dan and Cora over Dice Tower Board Game Breakfast now and again. And that's about it now. I used to do all sorts of stuff, but I've not done that for a while. But I'll probably have a new project going at some point, and follow me there wherever I turn up. Really,
outstanding. So be sure to swear in English the next time you game all night. Thanks for watching this week's episode. Join us next week when we play a game with the guest. If you enjoy our content, please consider supporting us on Patreon. Be sure to follow us on all forms of social media. Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook are the best ways possible. Simply find us by searching for Game All Night Show. And of course, check out our website at gameallnightshow.com. This Week and Each Week is made possible through the generous support of donors like these. Be sure to subscribe below and check out our latest videos. I'll ask you what you're drinking in a few minutes.
Okie dokie.
Don't skip off to the loo again.
I won't.
I know.
I don't know what the question was originally, but that's where it went.
Let's kind of just take that to its final conclusion,
calm
right?
Down, Dan. Just calm down. You're like, well, they're all rubbish.
I would take something that doesn't taste like pot.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's what the smarmy man said to the lady after the.
Yeah. Give us a tinkle on my blower, he said.
ask you what you're drinking in a few minutes.
Okie dokie.
Don't skip off to the loo again.
I won't.
I know.
I don't know what the question was originally, but that's where it went.